Thank you, appreciate that. And we're going to spend a few minutes here talking about the forestry sector and timber sector. The authors of this portion of the report would like to thank some of our partners that are present in the room, particularly the Kentucky Division of Forestry and members of the Kentucky Forest Industry Association for providing data and information for this. Now, when we speak about the forestry sector, we're talking about producers, forest owners. So these are in Kentucky, that's non-industrial, private woodland owners and farmers. We have very little industrial forest in Kentucky. And then we have loggers that are cutting and hauling the material, and a variety and wide range of industries from sawmills, pulp mills that are taking this timber and pulpwood, making a product, and then our secondary industries that are cabinetry, flooring, things of that nature. So when we're talking about the forestry sector, it encompasses a wide range of industries. In 2012, we feel very comfortable that we're going to run about $6.3 billion in total revenues provided to Kentucky through the forestry sector, with a total impact of $9 billion. We have roughly 24,000 employed directly in the sector, and we're responsible for a total contribution of 51,900 employees, and that's about 2.7% of the employment here in the state, and $1.25 billion in earned income. Now, our industry is predominantly hardwood based. We don't deal a lot in pine. A lot of our subsectors are housing linked: lumber production, veneer production, going into cabinetry, furniture, that kind of thing, millwork, trim work, flooring. And we'll talk a little bit more about housing starts and how they relate to these industries here. Then of course we have others of paper producers, cooperage, which is barrels, cross ties, pallets. Some of these are very tightly linked to the U.S. economy and some aren't, and we'll speak a little bit more to that. In 2012, we still maintain over 700 facilities here in wood industries here in Kentucky, in 109 out of 120 counties. And now this particular diagram has relevance to two areas. One, it shows you that $6.3 billion is evenly distributed across the state. That's good for rural economic development course. And it also indicates that you've got markets for timber and timber products throughout the state. Loggers, this is data from the Kentucky Master Logger Program. We have about 1,500 firms. They're evenly distributed as well, so we have the industry that can cut and haul timber off of from our woodland owners and farms and get them to industry, and that still remains intact. Overall capacity is down, but the number of loggers is staying fairly stable. If we have a quick look at our forest inventories, latest data indicates we've still got about half the acreage in Kentucky in forest. 105,000 own 10 acres or more. Speaking farms, about 57% of Kentucky farms have indicated that they have viable woodlands on them for timber production, and this equates to 3.1 million acres. That's about a quarter of our total timber supply, and that's significant. So Kentucky farms are important for our forest industry, for pulling resource. This also indicates a lot of farms have the ability to capture revenue from timber. Now, we've got all this timber going on. We're still growing more than we're cutting right now, and for all our hardwood species groups, which is good. We're cutting a little bit more pine than we're growing now, and a lot of that has to do with plantations that were put in, particularly in western Kentucky, that are now being cut and reverting into hardwood, and we have some disease issues that have affected that as well. Let's look at the trends in 2012. We have a $6.3 billion overall revenue. That was down a little bit. We lost about 3.6%. We've estimated in 2012 or $256 million in the forestry sector, so a small decline. Our sawlog output was 596 million board foot of hardwood saw logs and veneer logs. It seems like a lot. That's down from the 843 million average that we ran from 2000 to 2010. Our highest year is 1.1 billion in 1999, so we're off that quite a bit. Given that, we're still maintaining market share though. We're still the leading producer of hardwood saw logs in the South, and we'll probably wind up second in the U.S., so that's good for our industry, and it also reflects the overall depression in some of the sectors in forestry nationwide, and we are not immune to that. And this relates to roughly $183 million in log values here in Kentucky. And we'll look at a couple of different products coming out of the woods. The key to making money on timber is being able to merchandise correctly, make sure the right logs, right trees, if you will, go to the right place. This is our graph of our pricing from 08 until 12 on tie logs. Tie logs are made into railway cross ties. Kentucky is an important supplier of that nationwide. We see the prices have been fairly stable the last 2 years, and that's good, provides stability in that. Almost every woodland in the state and woodland owner and farmer has cross ties growing on their property. So that provides stability in the timber market. Now we'll look at one particular market that's gone up, driven primarily by exports, and that's our white oak stave market. A stave is the wood that goes into barrels, and that's what supports our cooperage market. So if we look at prices here, and these are delivered log prices, we see that in 2012 we've got a pretty good uptick going on, and again that's based on exports from North America, primarily to Europe and some to Asia. And this is solely for white oak. So if you've got white oak logs out there, you don't want to be delivering to a cross-tie market if you can take them to a stave market, is what that means. So white oak's looking pretty good from the standpoint of staves. This graph shows you the pricing, in this case, from 2001 into this year, 3/4 of this year, for overall saw log markets. So these are the logs that are going to go in for lumber production. Not specialty markets like stave logs and ties and that kind of thing. And we've got several key species up here. They're keyed in different colors. Black walnut is the top one in green, still commands the highest price of all the species we've had. We've had first 3/4 of this year, we've seen a decrease. We've lost 10–15% of our black walnut value. There is some speculation in this. It's not all technical, and that may or may not, that downward trend may or may not continue to occur. Depends on, we've got some disease issues, thousand cankers disease, pretty close to Kentucky border and that kind of thing. The red there is white oak, and white oak's maintained a pretty good value, off just a little bit. And then some of these others at the very bottom is yellow poplar. We have a lot of yellow poplar. Right now, a lot of that goes into trim work, for example, in housing or interior core and plywood. And if you're not selling a lot of that kind of stuff, you're going to have continued depression in yellow poplar overall. So outlook for 2013, we've already talked about housing starts. So housing starts, very important thing to track relative to the forestry sector. We have an uptrend in housing starts. That's predicted to continue in 2013, and just like it is with some areas of hort, forestry is going to be able to respond to that. You're going to see increased lumber prices, things of that nature. And we have inventory we have to deal with. There will be a lag effect, but housing starts up is good for us overall. We just haven't spoke a lot about paper. Paper is very important. Paper is important for a couple reasons. One, for procuring pulpwood off of our farms and our woodlands for paper production. We have 2 major paper producing facilities in Kentucky. Both make white paper, and we predict that market is going to be fairly stable. Now, what is going to be off though, and we're looking at an overall 4% decline in printing and paper converters. So this is the part of the paper industry after the production, and we've seen everybody's going paperless, and you're starting to see this now in overall paper consumption in the U.S. So buy more paper. Anyway, and so we think pulp and paper are going to be okay, which means pulpwood price is going to be okay. We do think that, and predicted that printing, packaging, and that kind of thing is going to go down. And the strength of that downturn will affect the overall forestry sector next year. The logging sector is stressed right now. Marginal log and pulpwood prices in many places, high fuel, both off-road, transportation, workforce issues. So right now the logging sector is fragile, and they're there, but they're not in the best shape, if you will. So that sector is fairly stressed, and we watch that fairly closely. Outlook for timber in 2013, tie logs, the demand for that and the pricing should be stable again. That's a good thing. Stave logs should be stable to improve. Actually, we could be fairly optimistic here and say we might see that trend continue upward. Saw log and veneer should stabilize. It depends upon the strength of the housing industry, how fast we move inventory of cabinets and flooring and that kind of thing. And as that clears out, we'll see a response. So what happens in 2013 is based on the strength of that. And we should start to see a seller's market relative to timber occurring. In 2009, 2010, we had a lot of sawmills just shut down, that kind of thing. So we had overabundance, and now with that returning, we'll move into a little bit of a seller's market. So I'll wrap this up by saying overall the forestry sector is going to be pretty stable. And now some subsectors will move around. Timber market should be improving slightly. Sawmilling will probably see more production next year, which is good. We probably won't see an uptick in employment simply because the workforce is not at capacity right now. We're going to continue to be worry about logging and watching that sector very closely. Pulp and paper production stable, and the overall the issue of post-production, what we do in the paper industries and sectors there, and the strength of that decline overall will probably have the most effect upon what happens in the forestry revenues in 2013.